Kia ora. Greetings and welcome to our very first Whakawhiti Kōrero PBS. I'm delighted that you have joined us on today's call. My name is Janelle Atlas, and I'm one of the 5 Pause, Breathe, Smile mindfulness facilitators. I'm based in Christchurch, and like most New Zealanders at the moment, I'm coming to you live from my house. It's such a privilege to be here today to moderate this Whakawhiti Kōrero with and for you. As more and more schools have been able to get trained in the Pause, Breathe, Smile mindfulness program, thanks to the generous financial support of Southern Cross, we have undertaken a huge goal this year of cultivating relationships with Pause, Breathe, Smile schools and across Pause, Breathe, Smile school communities. We're calling this initiative Whakawhanangatanga, the process of establishing links, making connections, and relating to the people we meet. And this call is one way that we can connect with you. This call's purpose is to support all of you, trained Pause, Breathe, Smile educators, in your implementation of the program, as well as to share experiences and ideas from an experienced Pause, Breathe, Smile teacher and principal. Of course, back when we set the date for this Whakawhiti Kōrero, we had no idea that Aotearoa would be in level 4 lockdown again. And yet, in some ways, the uncertainty that we're all facing as teachers and administrators, as family members, friends, just as people, this really sets the stage for perhaps an even more important dialogue today. Research has made it abundantly clear that practicing mindfulness has many, many benefits, including supporting ourselves and our young people in emotion regulation, attention regulation, managing anxiety and stress, and finding ways that we can be in the present moment. So I'm so grateful that you all made the time to be here in the midst of that uncertainty that we're all facing in order to talk and listen about Pause, Breathe, Smile and mindfulness in our schools. So I'm inviting you to arrive right here and right now on this call. Before we get to the conversation with our guest, I wanted to just give you an overview of how this call is going to work. First, I will have a conversation with Kay Stevens, today's guest. This portion of the call will be recorded so that we can share it again later for those who couldn't be on this live call. Some people couldn't make it. We want to make it available after the fact. During the dialogue with Kay, I would encourage you to keep your Zoom settings on presenter or speaker mode, so not gallery mode. And this will just make it easier for you to be mindful and attentive to the conversation and not get distracted by gallery images or cats wandering across other people's cameras. Due to the large number of people who are attending this call, which is super, super exciting, we have set participant microphones and cameras to off, and we ask you to leave them off until later in the call, please. Now, originally, when we started planning this Whakawhiti Kōrero, we had predicted that fewer people would register, which is, we weren't aiming super, super high. So we were planning to do a small breakout session as part of that call. However, due to the size of the audience who has shown up today, who are interested in being here, we're instead going to keep the call simple, and we're going to keep it to 2 main segments. One, the conversation between Kay and me, and then a question and answer session for you to get to engage. Now, rest assured, the Q&A session will not be recorded. So I hope that you feel completely free and comfortable to interact and to ask questions through the chat box. In addition, there will be an opportunity for you to speak directly to everyone on the call, should you have something in particular that you want to share or contribute about your own implementation of the program, how it works in your classroom or your school. But again, that will be later in the call, and I will give you the invitation at that time to raise your hand using the reaction button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So you'll see there's a smiley face that says reaction. So that way you can go in and it says raise hand, click on that, and then you'll be invited to unmute and turn on your video and audio to speak to everyone. Should you so choose, you'd be more than welcome. And we'll invite your participation at that time. So although Q&A will be a separate portion of the call, please feel free to type at any time, comments, questions, keep it mindfulness focused, please, and kind, but type into the chat box at any time during the call. So for example, perhaps when Kay is speaking, she says something and it sparks a question or a comment for you, just type it in when you think it, like just, put it in the box, and then we'll circle back around in the Q&A to reply to questions or comments that have been submitted. It is my genuine promise to you that we will keep this call to 45 minutes or less, because time is precious, life is full, your day is probably, jam-packed with a variety of different responsibilities. So we really want to honor that. Again, thank you so much for joining us here today for this conversation. And now, without any further ado, I want to introduce you to Kay Stevens. Kay is a teacher and the principal at Riversdale School in Southland. She has led the introduction and embedding of mindfulness practice in the form of Pause, Breathe, Smile at her primary school, where it has been ongoing for 6 years. So she was one of the very earliest adopters of the program. So I'm delighted to welcome Kay here today to speak about the impact of the mindfulness program for her learners and for her teachers at her school, and also to share some insight, tricks, tips, and ideas that I'm confident are going to inspire you in your kura as well. Kay, thank you so much for being here with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you, Janelle, for the invitation. And welcome to all of you who have made the time in your busy schedule to come.
Wonderful. And I understand that Kay is going to help us kind of kick off our mindfulness conversation with a very brief mindfulness practice. Is that right, Kay?
That is correct, Janelle. Janelle's going to sound the bell, and then I will commence just a very brief one.
Wonderful.
So just inviting you to settle into this place and this time. Close your eyes if you feel that you can, and if you can't, just defocus them on a spot in the place where you're sitting. And now bring your attention to your breath. So just breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. And just taking this time to arrive. And just check in with your body and check that you're not holding any tension in your jaw or your shoulders. You have a nice straight back, soft belly. And bring your attention down through your body, right to your feet, and just feel them grounded on the floor in this place. And breathing in and breathing out. And I'd just like you to think about the place we are at this time. And to be grateful that we are in New Zealand, this very beautiful country. And to be grateful for those people that are around us, supporting us at this time. And throughout your days that come forward, just remember to take a moment and bring your attention to that present moment. And in whatever you're choosing to do, enjoy the beautiful environment that we still live in and can enjoy. And take a moment to show that gratitude to those that surround us. And bringing your attention back to the breath. And breathing in and breathing out. And your attention back to this Kōrero that is hosted by Janelle. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Kay. That was much needed, I think. So to begin, I would like to just hear maybe a little bit about your school, kind of the size, and how and why you decided to bring mindfulness to your kura.
Our school's in a rural setting, so we're surrounded, most of our children are from a farming environment. There are some from our very small village of Riversdale, but mostly a very rural flavour. 120 currently, but when we introduced mindfulness, our roll was a little bit higher. It was probably around 150 at that time. And so it's fluctuated, but I'll speak more to that shortly. So we have really supportive community, beautiful parents, supportive board, a staff currently of 5 teachers, 5 classrooms. We began our journey back in November, in a roundabout way, November 2013. And it was through Katie O'Connor, who has practiced mindfulness for many years. And Katie is my cousin, so she was already practicing for some time. And she had made a connection with Grant Ricks from the Mindful Health Education Group. And Grant at that stage was piloting a program, and Katie had talked to me about it, and so we were very interested to be part of that pilot. So we discussed that with the board, and over that period of time, I guess we discussed it with the community, and there was some hesitation, and so we didn't actually go forward at that time. But in the following year, in 2014, although we didn't do the pilot, we did then step into and at that time it was called Mindfulness in Schools program. And so that was the beginning of our journey, which was really exciting. And I actually won a sabbatical later that year and was able to go and meet Grant and meet the researcher who had done a whole lot of research around the Mindfulness in Schools program, which was being implemented in a number of Auckland schools at that time. And so our story unfolded from then, and it's been an incredibly worthwhile journey, and just through huge support from Katie and amazing support from Grant Ricks, we have come to this place now where it's incredibly embedded in our school. And we will open staff meetings. So for some time, I've done the wee mindful practice to open our staff meetings, because it's a nice segue for teachers from a really busy space working with children into then a professional learning space. So I've done that, but now the staff are doing that. I've invited them, and they have each had a turn, and that's really rich because they've brought their mindful practices to the meeting, which look quite different from mine. So you get a whole variety and richness that develops the skills across the staff. I've also introduced it at the Board of Trustees meetings, and so that initially, I think the board were a wee bit like, this is sort of unusual. Kay's asking us to close our eyes and sit here. We have a number, that's probably where we have the most males on our, within our community is on the board. And so for them, but they really understand that it's part of the culture of the school now. It's so embedded, and there's absolutely no resistance around that. And it gives them a chance. I tell myself it gives them a chance to arrive to do the business of the board. So it just sort of is a nice break from where their thoughts and lives have been into where the present moment is.
Yeah, so it sounds like Pause, Breathe, Smile has become, like you used the word embedded, that it's not just within the formal lessons that you talk about mindfulness and practice mindfulness, but that it's seeped out into these other arenas and other areas where children aren't even necessarily present, and yet mindfulness is a part of your school ethos. What are some of the changes or benefits that you've seen, kind of that you've witnessed over the years in your school since bringing that mindfulness practice, into effect in your kura?
Certainly the children model that amazingly, and probably I think now we probably just take it for granted that we don't even notice so much, but in the early days we got feedback from a parent whose child had taken it outside of even the school setting. She competed with horse events, so pony club, and so she was teaching another child who wasn't even attending our school, who was very nervous at an event she said, look, you just do this mindful breathing and it really calms you and settles you. And lo and behold, at the next one, this girl said it worked, and the pony settled too, because of course animals pick up on our anxiety, so by reducing her own. And this parent shared that story, and I just thought, oh wow, this is really impacting beyond the children in our school and spreading it widely. So we see and hear children in the playground saying, do your breathing, if they notice a friend is heightened for any reason. So they'll say, take deep breaths. We see children who are heightened removing themselves from a situation and walking away, and you can just see that they're doing that breathing to moderate their feelings and thoughts at that time. We hear children talking about mindful eating, so they'll encourage at the family dinner table to be doing some mindful eating and to be in a present moment. And there's been some lovely stories about that, like sometimes when we've done the mindful eating and we're saying, how's that gone at home? Sometimes children, they're just gorgeous. They just say, Mum just said there's no time for mindful eating and just to hurry up and get finished because she wants to do the dishes. So, and I'm sure you'll have lovely stories like that. I mean, they're just gorgeous. But children who use it, like we always start after lunch with it, so it's bringing that focus back onto the learning and onto the concentrations that's needed for learning. So that's been an important part of the children's journey as well with it.
Yeah, so it sounds like, do all of your teachers do it after lunch? That's kind of a school-wide thing?
Yes, it is, Janelle. We really have embedded it, particularly at that time. So was really pleased. We had the pleasure of working with Betsy at the beginning of the year to do whole staff training. Up until that time, I trained as a facilitator in 2016. And so I took groups of classes through the 8 lessons. And 2 staff had done some mindfulness-based stress reduction courses with Katie O'Connor, and I think by doing that and doing the practice, you really get a deepened sense of what it is like. It's a way of being, and so although there's the fabulous lesson resource, I think for teachers it was that way of being. And I know certainly for one of my staff members, like it really changed her life. It really, that ability to really feel the embeddedness of mindful practice made her life so much different within the classroom, outside in her own life, her ability to cope with the stress of teaching, and it is a really stressful job. That made an incredible difference for her. So I think by doing the practice and the teachers doing the practice, that helps. We have 15 minutes every day. That's always been non-negotiable of a mindful practice. And then, so that's actually, yeah, it's probably longer than that actually, Janelle, because then there's the sharing time. So, and when we did the 8 weeks of the lessons, teachers did those in the afternoon, because I'm sure that everyone who's in a classroom here understands the curriculum pressure and the need to be working through core teaching areas. And that is certainly something that's evident in our school as well. Like teachers really like to get core teaching done in the morning. So when they undertook the 8 lessons after the training with Betsy, we set aside a Monday afternoon. So we have 1.5 hours in the afternoon, and the teachers did the core lesson for that week in that slot of time on a Monday, which involved mindful eating and, well, all of the lessons. So that was the part that was set aside, and that 1.5 hours allowed them to do it in a really mindful way and cater for all the questions that the children would be arising, to deal with, to put up the feelings on Te Whare Tapu Whā, those elements of it, to talk about which part of the body they're feeling the emotion, and all of that work that's in those lessons.
So it sounds like having that either a set period of time where the whole school is doing it, or at least making sure that your teachers know this isn't just an add-on. This isn't something you need to sneak in, 10 minutes here, 15 minutes there, but that you were supporting the structure of the program by ensuring that they knew that they had the permission to use that time. That's really important.
Yes, that's absolutely right, Janelle. And I went on Sunday to the supermarket, got all the mindful eating, whatever they were doing for that, so that barrier was reduced really, so that staff knew that come Monday, that was all there, and they could get that organised for that time.
All of the teachers on the call are making notes to talk to their principal. They're like, Kay Stevens, it's working at Kay Stevens School, and she did the shopping. I can see it now. You're going to be getting some emails. Well, I guess a question I have is that I want to turn to thinking about if I were a new teacher who'd just been trained in Pause, Breathe, Smile and hadn't maybe started doing the formal lessons yet. What advice would you have for me and other people in the call in that place? They're just about to start. Maybe they were already thinking they'd be starting, but lockdown has pushed it off. What advice would you have about that first time that you're introducing mindfulness, with that intention in the classroom? What kind of advice do you have?
I think actually it's absolutely fine to have the lesson plan beside you, because when you undertake anything new, there's a degree of anxiety that sits with you as well. And so to make it as easy as possible, don't be at all self-conscious about having the book there. I would have no expectation that people would hold the knowledge in their heads. And by this stage in the year, I know that all the teachers will have had the most wonderful relationship developed with their class. And so just to go into it with a really open heart and open mind, and say, and that it's going to be a really positive experience, and that it's a nice time. It's a calm, peaceful time with the children, and just to talk to them about it in that way, and to also acknowledge that for some children it might be hard to close your eyes, but that's okay. That whatever they can do to just come to a place where they're just really settled, it is what you want them to do. I think I talked about, I like children to lie down. Lie down on the floor on their backs, and I find that they become much more settled. And I know Kimberly, who's our junior, who teaches our new entrants, when I walk into her classroom after lunch, all of her lovely wee 5- and 6-year-olds are lying on their backs in the classroom with their hands on their bellies, actually, so they can feel their belly rising and falling. And so when I pop into classrooms and take a session, I also encourage children to lie on their backs. I think just often when they're at their desk, it's a different setting. Like I think sometimes children associate desk with the school work as well, and that there's things on top that they can maybe touch, that it's just easier to shift that place to be lying down, and it's a natural position to close your eyes as well, because they all lie down and go to sleep at night with your eyes closed.
So you did mention that most of the time, there are these, it's a nice experience. What about, a teacher who is on this call who's thinking, a kid has come to my mind and I know they're going to have just such a hard time with sitting still, and we all know those kids, right? We all love those kids. So if a child is distracting others during a mindfulness practice or is really having trouble settling in, what suggestions would you offer to their teacher to kind of mitigate the distraction and the impact on others and help to bring the child, on board with the practice, even if it's not perfect?
I guess I was really lucky because I'm so committed to it that earlier on we had we currently have, there's a number of children for whom it is a real challenge to settle. And so teachers nominated some children to come to me. So at one time, I ran a special Mrs. Stevens group in the staff room. So these children came straight after lunch and we did our mindful practice and did our mindful eating. And I guess partly because of my mana, and because I expressed to them how important it was to me that this was a lovely time. And there were fewer of them in the group. They really did engage much more and settle. There were still some who were distracted, but I just continued on with whatever the lesson of that day was. And gradually they became much better. And I think there was some real traction around that. For classroom teachers who don't have the option of perhaps nominating a group, I don't know about how flexible your school is, but if there were a large number, maybe one of the teachers could take out a group of up to a dozen students who were find it much harder to settle, and could take them as a special group. But yeah, that would need to be something. If it's just a classroom setting, I often invite those children to come closer to me. And I think when they're closer around you, I like to think that aura of mindfulness being spreads onto them, that because they are closer to you, there's a bit of connection, that they can see that you're doing it. I guess because I'm so fluent with it now, like Janelle invited me to do that mindful practice 2 minutes before we went into this session, and it's no problem. Well, I just, if anyone just said, can you lead one, I can do it, and I don't need to think about it at all. And so when I'm doing that, I'm actually lying with my eyes closed and I'm talking through that especially the meditation session, the soft, if it's soft belly, straight back soft belly, or if it's love and kindness, all of those ones you get to know so well that you can actually do them with the children. And then if they are having a wee peep at you, they see, oh gosh, Mrs. Stevens is really embedded in this. I will give this a really good go.
Well, everything that you just shared really gave me a lot of encouragement and ideas, and I can see that a couple people have posted questions to the chat box. If anyone else has questions that they want to add in, please just jot those in, or if you have something that you would like to contribute. So we're going to end the recording right now, so that there is no capture that is going